everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. Today's topic is a painful one. Maybe not painful, but it's like a disillusioned opening of the eyes, you know. Since quite some time now, and it's kind of interesting to focus it into one video, into one topic, and make a clear statement about it. Since quite some time, and probably most of you who are also into fashion and particular types of fashion and fashion brands might have noticed, I have noticed this, when I enter a Chanel boutique or a Louis Vuitton boutique or one of those luxury brand boutiques, usually Chanel or Louis Vuitton, the type of customers that really fill up that space throughout the day, and I've been to all of these boutiques many times. It's scary. The amount of tasteless people, you know, people that don't have taste, people that either, you know, the new rich or coming from countries that have become newly rich or I don't know what it is, but you see how they behave and you see how they're dressed, and that's like most of the customers that these luxury brands have nowadays. It's scary to see, but it's indicative and it explains to us a lot about the current state of affairs when it comes to issues such as, you know, constant deterioration of quality and quality control of certain luxury goods and luxury brands in general. And this, I think, you know, there are many factors that influence decrease in quality and increase in price. But I think one of the biggest factors is a lot of these people that have money today first buy all of these luxury brands for all the wrong reasons. So for them, it's a status symbol. For most of these people, owning a Chanel bag or a Louis Vuitton monogram canvas or whatever print is literally just to show off their wealth. They don't, you know, I have subscribers writing me, but Dacob, why do you like the monogram pattern? You know, it's just canvas that has like a plastic coating over it. I'm like, yeah, it does. I mean, I like it a lot for the hip hop references from the 80s and 90s, but mostly I respect the fact that that plastified canvas, that plasticky canvas that was actually, you know, cotton that's been plastified in a way, was invented almost like, well, at this point, 2 centuries ago, and was a revolution back in the day. Finally, people could start traveling and not get all of their clothes or stuff soaked, and didn't have to kind of have extremely heavy suitcases and luggage. Things could become a bit lighter because this canvas was, back in the day, more expensive than leather because it was really hard to produce. It was an innovation, and it's something that I respect highly today when I see this canvas, when I see the Louis Vuitton canvas. Most of the people don't know this anymore. They don't know the reasons why, you know, certain things were made and the reasons why certain things are considered heritage today. The fact that, you know, finally people could travel without getting all their clothes damp, wet, and, you know, whatever. There were no planes back in the day. You needed to travel for weeks and weeks and weeks to get from continent to continent and so forth. And then we have Chanel. And just this need, this obsessive need for that logo. And that's all they care for, most of these clients. So that the brand itself and the brands themselves kind of figured that out pretty quickly. And thought, okay, well, let's give the plebeians with money, which is awkward. There's no plebeian with money, but it kind of feels that way. Let's give them the logo. And let's demand a lot of money for that logo. And let's cut costs and earn even more money by just, you know, cutting the quality and quality control. And that is exactly what is happening. So we, as the customer, are guilty for the fact that quality is going down and prices are going up because more and more masses want to purchase this shit. And of course, the brands then dictate, the law of supply and demand. So they up the prices more and more. With the excuse, the hidden excuse of saying, well, we want to keep it exclusive. We don't want the market to overflood with our products, so we up the price so that less, people buy it. That's not true. They're just upping the price because they know people can buy it. And they always up the price just that much so that you can still kind of, not everybody, but that still the masses can afford it. Now, mind you, a lot of people cannot afford it. I'm not saying everybody can afford it, but the fact that these brands have so many billions in revenue every year means that people are buying. So somebody does have that money to purchase all those goods. That's a fact. And think about it this way. Me stopping, quitting, I stopped purchasing new goods for the year 2017. And I will not be purchasing them for at least 1 year because I am protesting against, quality going down, prices going up. And I think if more of us just stopped purchasing for a second, stopped consuming for a second, things would, would become better again. These brands have become spoiled because the brands know that the majority of the customers today that buy en masse do not care for the quality because they don't know any better. All they think is, I need a brand, I want the logo, and that's all I need to do to show off my wealth. I don't give a if the piece will fall apart in 2 or 3 weeks. I'll just buy a new one. So the brands react accordingly. And that is terrible. It's terrible that the brands fall into that trap because on the long term, they are harming themselves and their heritage because times will change and people that do still care, like me and you, for these brands and for the quality, we will remember the time when we were kind of milked like, cows out of our hard-earned cash to obtain some pieces that we envision and see and believe to be pieces of strong heritage and history, when in reality most of them, turn out to be a disappointment because the quality just isn't there anymore. Again, let's talk Chanel. Did you know that back in the 50s and 60s, when Chanel would talk about her bags, her own bag, the 255 bag, for example, in an interview she said, if you give me a bag made by my ateliers, I could tell you right away, just by the stitching, which one of my girls, because she got the girls, the ladies, to make her bags mostly. I could tell you exactly which one of my girls it was that made this specific bag. Think about that. That was quality. The woman that owned that empire knew exactly just by seeing the stitch who from her atelier made that piece. Now, here's a dare to you. I dare you to go to Karl Lagerfeld with a 255 reissue Chanel bag made in the past year. Show it to him, show him the stitches, and ask him, do you know which one of your workers made this bag? Which one of the many, I do not dare say how many I think there are really today working in these factories producing these bags. Which one of them made that bag? Gee, Karl, I only hear crickets. We are losing touch with what is really important. And again, I know I repeat myself a lot, but Oscar Wilde is one of my inspirations. And as he used to say or write, today we know the price of everything, but we know the value of nothing. Nothing. And most of the customers today, the type of customer, and you see them, how they behave, how they dress, they know the value of nothing. They just know the price of everything, and the price dictates the quality automatically. There's no questioning. Education is needed because we have to reinstigate the factor of questioning. and not being afraid to question. You know how many YouTube channels out there that are, based and talk about fashion just deliver to you sponsorships constantly. Nobody dares say what I say because nobody dares, heaven forbid, we would say something that might trigger something in some brand to consider us a threat. Because we use our minds, because we understand, because we question things. What sort of contorted, twisted, sick world do we live in where if you exercise a healthy, productive criticism and critique, you're being punished for that? What sort of sick, demented society is that? You should be actually, thanked for giving productive criticism and making people think. But no, the brands have found themselves in a position where they actually believe it better to keep people as much as possible at bay, not really thinking, not letting them think, not allowing them to ask questions, and kind of indirectly, very with subterfuge, showing to people, if you do dare question, you are cut out of certain circles, certain freebies won't be given to you anymore, certain jobs won't be available to you anymore. And, well, things are changing because thank God for platforms like YouTube, and I do believe more people, influencers, YouTubers, artists, thinkers, politicians, whatever you want to call it, should be using this platform and be less afraid of the consequences. What are the consequences? I'm sick of watching those YouTubers that literally just are like, showing you a product. Look at this. This is amazing, guys. I just received this. It was a present and I really like it. It's so good. It's so practical. It looks good. And like, okay, so they're talking to you. They don't even know really what to say about it. But oh my God. So many shallow channels. So many shallow content. That's a paradox, right? How can content be shallow? Well, it can. Superficial, nothing. And nobody really dares say it like it is and speak their mind. I dare. Why? Well, because thank God for platforms like YouTube where I do not need, to go through certain channels and certain censorship of bigger brands, corporations, before I get my voice out there. I shoot this video, I upload it to YouTube, and my subscribers and whoever looks for certain topics can find me. There is no filter, really. There could be some algorithm made by YouTube to whatever filter stuff through or show my video more in some continents than others, or I don't know. There are things that can happen, but nothing that really censors you to a degree to say, you said something that might be harmful to some brand. No. Nobody's saying anything harmful to any brand. Actually, for the love of those brands, I'm saying these things because I want them to better themselves. Not just for the sake of their future, but also for the sake of the consumer that deserves the best. So why aren't there more people out there really saying how it is? Because if more people would speak up, things would change, because people would wake up and understand that the way things are going today is not the right way. In no way, shape, or form is it the right way. And this can expand to everything from politics to something as futile as fashion. Let's not even get into the debate of politics, because from the alternative or alternate facts to real concrete facts, it's a big mess. I'm going to end with this example. I read it just the other day on the internet. That place where we can all get a free education if we only wanted to. And if you do know who wrote this story, please let me know. I've been trying to figure out who the author is to credit them, but beyond me, because too many people copied and pasted and I don't know who did it. But if you know who it was, please comment in the comment section down below, and I shall then place the inventor of this story into the description box of this video. So a politician dies and is at the gates of heaven. And St. Peter is at the gates of heaven, and he's like checking his list, like the guest list for who can enter heaven or not. And he notices that this guy that just died is a politician. And so St. Peter says, "Oh, you're a politician." And the politician says, "Yes, is there something wrong with that?" And St. Peter says, No, it's all good. Listen, but we just have this new policy, and basically, well, you are allowed to choose if you want to, come to heaven or go to hell. But the policy, it says that you have to spend a day in hell before you make up your mind. So before I can let you enter the gates of heaven, you got to go one day to hell. And the politician says, "Really? Why?" St. Peter says, "Well, those are the rules. Sorry, boo." Snaps his fingers, and the politician is in hell. He's holding his hands on his eyes, and he's afraid to look what is around him because he's in fear of hell. And he hears Satan talking to him, saying, "Wakey, wakey, come on, don't be scared, open your eyes." So the politician, opens his eyes slowly and notices he's in a penthouse. There's free booze and drinks everywhere and food, and the sun is shining outside. And he goes to the window and looks down, and there's golf courses, and other fellow politicians and people he was so inspired by in his own youth are down there playing golf. He turns around, looks at Satan, and Satan is dressed in the most expensive and gorgeous suit any politician would ever dream of. The politician asks to Satan, "How is this hell? I've been told hell was something different." And Satan says, "Yes, this is hell. Well, we have been depicted quite wrongly up there most of the time. Would you like to come down with me and play some golf?" So the politician says, "Oh, yes, let's go play some golf." So he meets other fellow politicians. They talk a lot about politics. It's an amazing time. All of a sudden, his wife, that also passed away sometime, comes by, and she's in her 20s, in the most firm and proper and sexy of looks she could ever have. In the prime of her youth. She says, "Hey, love, it's me again, After playing golf, they go to have dinner. Then they retire to the room after she whispers soft nothings in his ear. And they spend a night of passionate love. Next morning, he wakes up. All of a sudden, he's in front of the gates of heaven. And St. Peter is there, ready to ask the question. "So, Mr. Politician, have you decided? Would you like to come to heaven and sit upon, white clouds and light and just observe the endless grace and good of God? Or would you like to go to hell?" And the politician thinks for a second and says, "Hell wasn't all that bad. I think I want to go to hell." St. Peter says, "I don't blame you. Okay." The politician wakes up in hell. Heat everywhere, people screaming, being tortured, their souls being torn apart from their bodies, their eyes being poked out of them, their necks being cut, split open, there's blood everywhere. Satan appears in front of him, still dressed in that gorgeous suit, and says, "Okay, time to torture you a little bit." The politician looks up and says, "What is going on here? What is going on here?" And Satan says, "Oh, it's just normal. You see, yesterday we were campaigning. Today you have voted." This is how we spend most of our lives. This is what happens to us after the elections. This is what happens to us after we purchase something that has been kind of sold to us as heaven, but in reality it's hell. Think about that next time you go shopping, guys. Love you all. Don't forget to share this video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. no matter what heaven or hell you find yourself in, the only way out of both. Because the best to me is somewhere in between both, because reality is never as good or as bad as it seems or as it really is. But the only way to balance both and be as healthy as possible is to never give up on love. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you soon. Take care. Bye.